They were all on summer holidays, nobody was around, and we actually we started to shoot on the 19th of October, and Annie only came on board at the beginning of October, so I think we were down to the wire, and we actually made moves to try and bring on board a professional actress from Ireland, because we were so unnerved by the fact that we just didn't seem to have anyone to play the part of Helen. And I think if you're willing to hang out on the cliff edge by the ends of your fingernails, and if you can, kind of cope with hanging out on the cliff edge, something will come your way. And, as we were in the process of meeting this professional actress from Ireland, and we knew it was completely wrong for us to be doing that, we met Annie, so.
And how's the actual dynamic? I mean, I'm always interested in filmmaking dynamics, where you have a filmmaking partnership. Obviously, there's Joe and Ethan Cohen is the one that comes to mind. How's the actual dynamic with Joe Lawler, who you make the films and write the films with? How does that process actually work? Because quite often you find that one member of the team concentrates on the actors and another member. Does it work that way with yourselves, or is it much more fluid?
It kind of does. I would say we have a dialogue that's extended over decades of working together across different art forms. So we have a real shorthand, we understand each other, we're very much in sync, but we also have our strengths and weaknesses, and what we try to do is play to our strengths. We don't work so closely together we both do everything together. Joe's actually a really good producer. He has produced all our work, most of it anyway, and on set we do delegate, so I would stay closer to the camera crew, Joe would stay closer to the performers, but then we kind of mix it up. But we know kind of what our strengths are, and we try to work to our strengths, but really it's rooted in a dialogue, and that goes on all the time, endlessly.
Endless dialogues. We actually did an interview. It's the first time we've met, but we did an email interview, which was quite an odd process, not an unenjoyable one. But one of the things that came out of that interview, and I went back and read the reviews, is that I think Helen genuinely is a wonderful film. And reading the reviews, people describe it as glacial. A lot of the reviews, which have been very positive, and the film was screened to huge acclaim at Edinburgh and other festivals. They talk about the film as being glacial, and that's how I originally envisioned it when you talk about the visual aesthetics, but I'm not sure that glacial is quite right, actually, because I think this is a film, and we talk more about the form, but this is a film which really much deals with emotions. I think it's a very emotional film and emotive, and I think to call the film glacial suggests that it's cold in some ways. Is glacial a term that you take issue with, or can you see why people might think of it that way?
I don't know, that's a really difficult one to respond to. I think there is an emotional undercurrent in the film, but it's pretty hidden, and we would see the lead, like the central character of Helen has been somebody who's quite... Oh yeah, because the mic's gone off, hasn't it?
Try this one.
We would see Helen as being somebody who's quite closed, and on one level is very untrusting, and most of what happens to her is happening underneath the surface, and that's the way we approached the film, how we went about making the film. And yet I would really hope that there is some kind of an emotional undercurrent there, but it's pretty underneath the surface. So I don't know, I mean that question is really a question, I suppose, that audiences answer individually, and it's about how they respond to the film.
Well, we'll see their response in a few moments. I was just going to ask a couple of other things, actually, if I may, because talking about that emotion, there's that astonishing scene where, that mealtime scene where Helen has that very uncomfortable meal with the parents of the missing girl, and that strikes me as a scene that may have been quite a difficult one to shot, especially if you're working with if you use the term non-professional actors or non-actors. Was that scene particularly difficult to approach?
In a way, no more so than any of the other films. And we will use devices like we will use cutaways, so that we don't get the chance to use very many cutaways. So the shoot ratio is very low. When we have the chance, we do it, so that we can focus, say, on Helen's face as the father is crying, and so that we give ourselves those kind of options, because in a way that scene is kind of a moment in the film that's contrary to a lot of the other ways in the film that the kind of an emotional undercurrent, which I hope is there, is played out, because it's more overtly emotional. And so we wanted to give ourselves options in the editing phase of the film to kind of keep that at a bit of a distance, an arm's length. So, you know, no, in a way it wasn't any more or less not challenging, but it wasn't any different to trying to set up the other scenes. We work with people in a very particular way. We kind of stalk the scene, we concentrate a lot on what the camera is doing, and we keep the kind of directing to an absolute minimum. And we really give instructions and we let people get on with it and see where it goes. But we also know within that strategy there isn't that many opportunities to redo the scene if it doesn't work. So we know that we have to cut some slack for the performers, and in that way we kind of slow it down and we keep the dynamics of the scenes quite low key so that we have the best chance in the world of trying to get something in the can.
I was tremendously, I popped in again to watch a few minutes in the film, and you know, I'll let somebody else hopefully ask about the look of the film, but I think one of the really major contributing factors to the film, and it seems unfair to, you know, single out individuals for praise, is the score by Dennis McNulty. You know, this kind of ambient score which is there, and ambient, I mean in a positive way, ambient sometimes is taken to use just background noise, but it's a fantastic piece of work that Dennis has done on the film. How did you come to work with Dennis, and what kind of instructions did you give him?
We met Dennis when we were shown one of our Civic Life short films in Sao Paulo as part of the Sao Paulo Biennale, and he was also an artist, an Irish artist who was making work in Sao Paulo, and we, you know, clocked that he's somebody that we'd like to work with in the future. When we did our short film Joy, which is like a companion piece to the feature, we commissioned Dennis to do the score for that as a kind of a trial to see, because it's not really what he wants to do. He doesn't want to do music or scores for films. He does his own thing, site-specific sound installation work. But he agreed to do Joy, and then on the back of that we knew that, you know, that he'd be great to bring on board for Helen. As it happens, his contribution didn't arrive until the final mix. So we actually heard it. We left it up to him. Joe spent a day with him in Dublin. Other than that, it was very much his interpretation of what we wanted, what he felt we wanted, and what he wanted to bring to us. And the very first time I heard all the sound was in our final mix, when the decision would either be to have it in or to not have it in at all.
Was it an easy decision to make?
Yeah, it was, but at the same time it was kind of tricky because I was so used to, my experience of the film was a film with no sound, so very quiet, silent film, and suddenly to have sound in there was, and to be so close to the wire with, you know, locking it all off. It took some adjustment, but I knew it was right. We both knew it was right.
I can't imagine it without it.
No, I can't.
There was a gentleman at the front that had a question. Yeah. If you speak loudly, if people can't hear, I'll try and repeat the question.
Yeah, I was going to ask about a certain mood that seems to run through the film, not so much glacial, but a certain kind of formality, detachment. For instance, in the blue sky thinking thing, I mean, I know you met college students, so kind of passive and not boisterous, and you know, when they meet in the gym with the police, it was all kind of terribly formal. The parents didn't hug each other or anything, although they were very warm towards Helen. Was any of that sort of deliberate?
Did people hear it back? So it's going to be very difficult for me to paraphrase that. Yeah. Tell me if I get this wrong. The question was about the mood and the kind of, I guess, if I'm paraphrasing badly, the kind of lack of emotion that is sometimes shown, the lack of outward emotion that is sometimes shown, although there is emotion in the film shown as well.
Yeah, I would say that's very, very deliberate, and we would have, I would say that